Namaste! Welcome to Quick Wisdom with Bliss. My name is Bliss. Meow! And this is my cute little furball friend, Joy. Spirituality is everywhere. In the air we breathe, in nature all around us, and even written into our very DNA. We are energy, and together as energy, we're all connected. We're all one. United as one, we are here on the stage of life to love and help each other live the best we can. Now, I know you've come today to learn about a very special topic, so let's put on our fun caps and get started on this sacred exploration. This is Quick Wisdom with Bliss, Sacred Geometry. We live in a world of beautiful shapes. They're all around us. We can even make them with our body. Isn't that right, Joy? If you look at her tail just right, it appears as if it's shaped like a question mark. That's fitting because you know how inquisitive kitties can be. Shapes can symbolize or represent just about anything, whether it be the building of beauty or the withering of decay. In between the two, you can find a land full of mysticism and wonder. One that is made up of something we call sacred geometry, and that can tie directly into the science of creation. Ready to go on a trip of wonder and enlightenment, Joy? Aw, what a big meow. Let's get to it. Sacred geometry can assign symbolic and sacred meanings to different kinds of geometric shapes and even certain geometric sizes. It's often associated with the belief that a god is actually the greater geometer of the world. Geometry that is employed in the building and design of religious structures like temples, churches, mosques, altars, religious monuments, and tabernacles. As a result, this type of geometry has been considered by many to be sacred. This concept also applies to sacred spaces like sacred groves, temenoi, holy wells, and village greens, along with the creation of religious artwork. One belief that's been around since ancient times is that a god created the universe according to a geometric plan. A Greek biographer named Plutarch attributed this belief to Plato, who once wrote in one of his many essays that Plato said God geometrizes continually. There are plenty of other beliefs too. Isn't that right, Joy? According to Australian author, editor, publisher, and lecturer Stephen Skinner, research into sacred geometry has its origins in the study of nature and the mathematical theories at work within them. Many different things that can be easily found in nature can be related to geometry. Wow! Isn't the world magical? It's always telling us something if we take the time to listen. Now, listen to this! The chambered Mandalas will continue to grow at a non-stop rate, and so its shell forms a logarithmic spiral that can accommodate that type of constant growth without changing its shape. Cool, huh? Also, honeybees will build hexagonal cells to store their honey. These and other accordances are often thought of in terms of being sacred geometry and are considered by many to be further proof of the natural importance of geometric forms. Geometric figures and geometric ratios are often found in the designs of ancient Indian, ancient Egyptian, Roman, and Greek architecture. Medieval European cathedrals also use symbolic geometry. Himalayan and Indian spiritual communities would often construct fortifications and temples on the design plans of mandala and yantra. Mandalas and yantras are super important in the usage of sacred geometry. Put down that yarn, Joy, and let little Miss Bliss teach you all about them. A mandala is a spiritual and/or ritual geometric configuration of symbols or a map in the Indian religions of Buddhism, Hinduism, Jainism, or Japanese lifestyle of Shintoism, representing deities, or in paradises, the case of Shintoism, kami, or actual shrines. Nowadays, you can even find it almost everywhere, including the United States. Typically, American use of mandala has become a generic term for any chart, diagram, or geometric pattern that represents the cosmos symbolically or metaphysically. A time microcosm of the universe, originally meant to represent wholeness and a model for the organizational build of life itself. A cosmic diagram will show us our relation to the infinite and the world which extends within and beyond our minds and bodies. One of the most basic forms of most mandalas just happens to be a square with 4 gates that contains a circle within the center point. Mandalas often have a radial balance. The term appears in the Rig Veda as the name of the sections of the work, and Vedic rituals use mandalas like the Navagraha mandala to this day. Mandalas can also be found being used in Buddhism. In many different spiritual traditions, mandalas may be used for focusing attention of adepts and practitioners as a spiritual guidance tool so that the user can establish a sacred space that will happen with meditation and trance induction. What do you think about that, Joy? You're so cute, Joy. I love you. Sorry, lost in cuteness. Let's continue. Yantras are a mystical diagram that's mainly comprised from the tantric traditions of the Indian religions. They can be used to facilitate in the worshipping of deities in home or at temples. Essentially, yantras aid a person in meditation. They are also used because of the benefits given by their supposed powers, which are based on tantric texts and Hindu astrology. Yantras are also used as an adornment of temple floors, due mainly to their symmetric and aesthetic qualities. Specific yantras are almost always associated with specific deities. Various forms of the yantra in India are believed to date back to 11,000 to 10,000 years BP. And the Baghor stone, which was found in an Upper Paleolithic context in the Son River Valley, is thought to be the earliest example by historian G.R. Sharma, who was involved in the stone's excavation somewhere between 25,000 and 20,000 BP. The Baghor stone is a triangular shape and it has triangular engravings on one side, was found daubed in a natural clay earth pigment known as ochre. The stone was found in an area considered a site related to worship. Worship of goddesses in that region was practiced in a similar manner to the present day. sacred geometry can also be found used in the human body. Oh, Joy, calm down. I'm sure it's used somehow in kitties too. Did you know a lot of the sacred geometry principles of ancient architecture and the human body were organized into the Vitruvian Man drawing by artist Leonardo da Vinci? Yup, the drawing itself was based on the ancient writings of the Roman architect Vitruvius. This translates to the proportions of the human body according to Vitruvius, or simply l'uomo vitruviano. The drawing was created around the year 1490. It is accompanied by notes that were based on the work of the Roman architect Vitruvius. The drawing and text are sometimes referred to as the canon of proportions or proportions of man. The drawing is kept in the Gabinetto dei Disegni e Stampe of the Galleria dell'Accademia in Venice, Italy. Because paper is so delicate, the Vitruvian Man is displayed to the public only on occasion, and it is not part of the normal exhibition of the museum. The drawing is based on the correlations of ideal human body proportions with the geometry described by the ancient Roman architect Vitruvius in Book 3 of his treatise De Architectura. Vitruvius described the human figure as being the principal source of proportion among the classical orders of architecture. Vitruvius determined that the ideal body should be 8 heads high. Leonardo's drawing is traditionally named in honor of the architect. The building of medieval European cathedrals was frequently based on geometries that were intended to make the onlooker see the world through mathematics. It was through this understanding that the viewer would gain a better understanding of the divine. Churches like these often featured a Latin cross floor plan. At the start of the Renaissance in Europe, perspectives changed to favor more simple and regular types of geometries. The circle became a central and symbolic shape for the base of buildings, because it represented the perfection of nature and the centrality of man's place within the universe. The usage of the circle alongside other simple and symmetrical geometric shapes became a staple of Renaissance religious architecture in Leon Battista Alberti's architectural treatise. In his work, Alberti described the ideal church in terms of spiritual geometry. See how Joy sometimes runs around in a circle, or maybe you spin yourself around and around? Well, different types of circles play important roles in the world of sacred geometry. Joy, are you ready to learn more? That's what I thought. Here we go. Blessings of knowledge. Let these facts heal us with understanding. Let's talk about a magic circle, for instance. These mystical ringlets of space have been marked out by practitioners of tons of branches of ritual magic. These practitioners are of the mindset that a magic circle can either contain energy and form a sacred space, or even provide the users inside of the circle with a type of magical protection. Sometimes it can be both of the above possibilities at once. Cool, huh? A magic circle can be drawn in salt or chalk and can be marked physically or just simply visualized. The magic circle has a significance that is very similar to that of mandala and yantra in some Eastern religions. These are also Solomonic magic circles, which have a triangle of conjuration in the east. These would be drawn on the ground, and the conjurer would stand within the protection of the circle while a spirit was summoned into the triangle. Traditionally, circles were thought by ritual magicians to create a protective barrier between themselves and what they summoned. Modern practitioners now cast magic circles more to concentrate and contain the energy which they raise over a course of a ritual. There are tons of techniques for casting magic circles. Many groups and practitioners have developed their own unique methods. The one thing that all of these techniques have in common is that a boundary is traced around the working area. Some witchcraft traditions say that one must trace around the circle Diocel 3 times. There's a variation over which direction one should start in. The 4 cardinal directions of a magic circle are often clearly marked by things such as 4 candles. During ceremonial magic, the 4 directions are almost always related to the 4 archangels: Gabriel, Michael, Uriel, who's also known as Oriel, and Raphael. Other ceremonial traditions will see the 4 candles between the quarters of the magic circle, meaning in the northwest, northeast, and etc. etc. Incantations will usually be recited stating the purpose and nature of the circle. These incantations often repeat an assortment of angelic and divine names. When being used in the practice of Wicca, a magic circle is often about 9 feet in diameter, but its size can change depending on the purpose of the magic circle and, of course, the preferences of the caster. The barrier of a magic circle is thought of to be extremely fragile. So much so that merely passing through or leaving the circle could either weaken it or dispel it altogether. The act of doing so is called breaking the circle. It is generally believed that practitioners should only leave the circle if it is absolutely necessary. As a means to leave a circle and keep it intact, Wiccans are of the belief that a door must be cut into the energy of the circle. Usually this door is found on the east side. Whatever was used to conjure the circle is also used to cut the doorway. Tools to do so vary. A circle can be cut by a sword or knife. Once the doorway is in place, anything may pass through the door without harming the magic circle. However, it's important that opening must be closed by reconnecting the lines of the circle afterwards. Yes, that's correct, Joy. Overlapping circles have their very own meaning. An overlapping circles grid is a geometric pattern of repeating, overlapping circles of equal size in a 2-dimensional space. Usually designs like these are based on circles which are centered on triangles, with the simple 2-circle form named vesica piscis, or on the square lattice pattern of points. Patterns of 7 overlapping circles have appeared in historical artifacts from the 7th century BC onwards. These patterns have become a frequently used ornament during the Roman Empire period. They have stood the test of time and have made their way into medieval artistic traditions, both in Islamic art known as gira decorations, and also in Gothic art. The name Flower of Life has been given to the overlapping circles pattern in a lot of New Age publications. One flower-like pattern of particular interest is the 6-petal rosette, which was derived from the 7 overlapping circles pattern. This very distinctive pattern is also known as the Sun of the Alps because of its frequent usage in alpine folk art from the 17th and 18th centuries. The triangular lattice form with circle radii equal to their separation is called a 7 overlapping circles grid. It contains 6 circles intersecting at a point, with the 7th circle centered on that intersection. That is quick wisdom if you ask me. What do you think, Joy? Well said, Joy. I couldn't agree with you more. Now, are you ready to get deeper into this? Okay then. Overlapping circles that have a similar geometrical construction have been used infrequently in various forms of the decorative arts ever since ancient times. The pattern has enjoyed a wide range of use in fashion, jewelry, tattoos, popular culture, and decorative products. The oldest known usage of the overlapping circles pattern has been dated back to the 17th or 6th century BCE. And it was found on the threshold of the palace of Assyrian king Assur-bani-apli in Dur-Sarakin. It is currently on display in Paris at the Louvre. The design became even more widespread during the early centuries of the Common Era. One of the earliest examples are 5 patterns of 19 overlapping circles that were drawn on the granite columns at the Temple of Osiris in Abydos, Egypt. And there's even a further 5 located on a column at the opposite side of the building. They are drawn in red ochre and some are very faint and difficult to see. The patterns are a sort of graffiti and are not found natively on Egyptian ornaments. Most of them have been dated to the early centuries of the Christian era. But medieval or even modern early 20th century origins can't be entirely ruled out because the drawings aren't mentioned in the extensive listings of graffiti at the temple, which was compiled by Egyptologist Margaret Murray in the year 1904. Patterns like these were sometimes used in England as an apotropic marks to keep nasty old witches from entering buildings. Consecration crosses, which indicate points in churches, which have also been anointed with holy water during a church's dedication, have also taken the form of overlapping circles. There are tons of modern examples of this pattern around us all the time. You may not even realize it. This beautiful pattern has made its way into a wide range of uses. In quilting, the pattern has been called triangle wedding ring or diamond wedding ring as a means to contrast it from the traditional square pattern. You'll find the pattern occasionally in the fashion world. But it's also heavily used in the area of decorative arts. For example, Bring Me the Horizon's 2013 album, Sempiternal, uses the 61 overlapping circles grid as the main feature of its album cover. But that's not all either. The Sun of the Alps symbol has been used as the emblem of Padanian nationalism in northern Italy since the 1990s. It looks just like a pattern often found in that area on buildings. Nature is also the home of many different types of sacred geometry. For instance, an equiangular spiral, logarithmic spiral, or growth spiral is a self-similar spiral curve that frequently appears in nature. The logarithmic spiral was first detailed by French philosopher René Descartes, and then mathematician Jacob Bernoulli extensively investigated this pattern and called it spira mirabilis. Spira mirabilis is Latin for miraculous spiral. Franco-American mathematician Benoit Mandelbrot delved deeper into this pattern in his 1982 book, The Fractal Geometry of Nature, which is a revised and enlarged version of his 1977 book entitled Fractals, Form, Chance, and Dimension, which in turn was a revised, enlarged, and translated version of his 1975 French book Les Objets Fractals, Forme, Hazard et Dimension. As technology has improved mathematically accurate, computer-drawn fractals have become more detailed. Early drawings were low resolution, black and white. Later drawings were higher resolution and in color. Many examples were created by programmers working with Mandalas, primarily at IBM Research. These visualizations have added to persuasiveness of the books and their impact on the scientific community. The number 108 also plays an important part in the world of the sacred geometry, as it's considered sacred by the Dharmic religions such as Buddhism, Hinduism, and Jainism. In Hindu tradition, the Mukhya Shivaganas, the attendant of Shiva, are 108 in number, and hence Shaiva religions, particularly Lingayats, use malas of 108 beads for prayer and meditation. Similarly, in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, Lord Krishna in Vrindavan had 108 followers known as gopis. Recital of their names, often accompanied by the counting of 108 beaded mala, is often done during religious ceremonies. The Sri Vaishnavite tradition has 108 Divya Desams, the temples of Vishnu that are revered by the 12 Alvars in the Divya Prabandha, a collection of 4,000 Tamil verses. In Jainism, the total number of ways of karma influx known as asarav, 4 kashas: anger, pride, conceit, greed, times 3 karnas, mind, speech, bodily, actions, times 3 stages of planning, procurement, commencement, times 3 ways of execution: own action, getting it done, supporting or approval of action. In Buddhism, according to Bhante Gunartana, this number is reached by multiplying the senses smell, touch, taste, hearing, sight, and consciousness by whether they are painful, pleasant, or neutral, and then again by whether these are internally generated or externally occurring, and yet again by past, present, and future. Finally, we get 108 feelings. 6 times 3 times 2 times 3 equals 108. Tibetan Buddhist malas or rosaries are usually 108 beads, sometimes 111, including the Guru bead, reflecting the words of the Buddha called Tibetan the Kangyur in 108 volumes. Zen priests wear juzu, a ring of prayer beads around their wrists, which consists of 108 beads. Japa mala or japa beads made from tulasi wood, consisting of 108 beads plus the head bead. The Lankavatara Sutra has a section where Bodhisattva Mahatma asks Buddha 108 questions and another section where Buddha lists 108 statements of negation in the form of, a statement concerning X is not a statement concerning X. In a footnote, D.T. Suzuki explains that the Sanskrit word translated as statement is pada, which can also mean footstep or a position. This confusion over the word pada explains why some have mistakenly held that the reference to 108 statements in the Lankavatara refer to the 108 steps that many temples have. In Japan, at the end of the year, a bell is chimed 108 times in Buddhist temples to finish the old year and welcome the new one. Each ring represents one of 108 earthly temptations known as the bono, a person must overcome to achieve nirvana. In the neo-Gnostic teachings of Samael Aun Weor, an individual has 108 chances or lifetimes to eliminate his egos and transcend the material world before devolving and having the egos forcefully removed in the infra dimensions. These fun facts fill my heart with happiness. I love learning, don't you? I hope these spiritual concepts are becoming clear. Let's keep learning. Meow. I get what you're doing, you clever kitty. This is your way of reminding me to tell everyone about how sacred geometry has even made its way into music. The Musica Universalis, which literally translates to universal music, is also called music of the spheres or harmony of the spheres. It's an ancient philosophical concept that regards proportions in the movements of celestial bodies, the sun, moon, and planets, as a form of music. This music is not thought of to be audible, but rather a harmonic, mathematical, or religious concept. The idea continued to appeal to scholars until the end of the Renaissance, influencing many kinds of scholars, including humanists. Further scientific exploration discovered orbital resonance and specific proportions in some orbital motion. The discovery of the precise relation between the pitch of the musical note and the length of the string that produces it is attributed to Pythagoras. The music of the spheres incorporates the metaphysical principle that mathematical relationships express qualities or tones of energy which manifest in numbers, visual angles, shapes, and sounds, all connected within a pattern of proportion. Pythagoras first identified that the pitch of a musical note is in inverse proportion to the length of the string that produces it, and that intervals between harmonious sound frequencies from simple numerical ratios. In a theory known as the harmony of the spheres, Greek philosopher Pythagoras proposed that the sun, moon, and planets all emit their own unique hum based on their orbital revolution, and that the quality of life on Earth reflects the tenor of celestial sounds, which are physically imperceptible to the human ear. Subsequently, Plato described astronomy and music as twin studies of central recognition. Astronomy for the eyes, music for the ears, and both requiring knowledge of numerical proportions. Greek philosopher Aristotle criticized the notion that celestial bodies make a sound and moving in the context of his own cosmological model. From all this, it is clear that the theory that the movement of the stars produces a harmony, i.e. that the sounds they make are concordant, in spite of the grace and originality with which it has been stated, is nevertheless untrue. Some thinkers suppose that the motion of bodies of that size must produce a noise, since on our Earth, the motion of bodies far inferior in size and in speed of movement has that effect. Also, when the sun and the moon, they say, and all the stars, so great in number and in size, are moving with so rapid of a motion, how should they not produce a sound immensely great? Starting from this argument and from observations that their speeds, as measured by their distances, are in the same ratios as musical concordances, they assert that the sound given forth by the circular movement of the stars is a harmony. Since, however, it appears unaccountable that we should not hear this music, they explain this by saying that the sound is in our ears from the very moment of birth, and is thus indistinguishable from its contrary, silence, since sound and silence are discriminated by mutual contrast. What happens to men, then, is just what happens to coppersmiths, who are so accustomed to the noise of the smithy that it makes no difference to them. But as we said before, melodious and poetical as the theory is, it could not be a true account of the facts. There is not only the absurdity of our hearing nothing, the ground of which they try to remove, but also the fact that no effect other than sensitive is produced upon us. Excessive noises, we know, shatter the solid bodies even of inanimate things. The noise of thunder, for instance, splits rocks and the strongest of bodies. But if the moving bodies are so great and the sound which penetrates to us is proportionate to their size, that sound must needs to reach us in an intensity many times that of thunder, and the force of its action must be immense. The three branches of the medieval concept of musica were presented by Boethius in his book De Musica. Musica mundana, sometimes referred to as musica universalis. Musica humana, the internal music of the human body. Musica quae in quibus tam constituta est instrumentis, sounds made by singers and instrumentalists. According to Max Heindel's Rosicrucian writings, the heavenly music of the spheres is heard in the region of concrete thought, the lower region of the mental plane, which is an ocean of harmony. Musica universalis, which had existed since the Greeks as a metaphysical concept, was often taught in quadrivium. And this connection between music and astronomy intrigued German astronomer Johannes Kepler, and he devoted so much of his time after publishing The Mystery of the Cosmos, also known as the Mysterium Cosmographicum, looking over tables and trying to fit the data to what he believed to be the true nature of the cosmos. In 1619, Kepler published Harmonices Mundi, which literally translates to the harmony of the worlds, expanding on the concepts he introduced in Mysterium, and positing that musical intervals and harmonies describe the motions of the 6 known planets of the time. He believed that this harmony, while inaudible, could be heard by the soul, and that it gave a very agreeable feeling of bliss, afforded him by this music and the imitation of God. In Harmonices, Kepler laid out an argument for a creator who had made an explicit connection between geometry, astronomy, and music, and that the planets were arranged intelligently. Wow, I can feel my spirit evolving as we learn all this new and important information. And there's more! Harmonices is split into 5 books, or chapters. The first and second books give a brief discussion on regular polyhedron and their congruences, reiterating the idea he introduced in Mysterium that the 5 regular solids known about since antiquity define the orbits of the planets and their distances from the Sun. Book 3 focuses on defining musical harmonies, including consonance and dissonance, intervals, including the problems of just tuning, their relations to string length, and what makes music pleasurable to listen to. In the fourth book, Kepler presents a metaphysical basis for this system, along with arguments for why the harmony of the worlds appeals to the intellectual soul in the same manner as the harmony of music appeals to the human soul. Here he also uses the naturalness of this harmony as an argument for heliocentrism. In Book 5, Kepler describes in detail the orbitable motion of the planets and how this motion nearly perfectly matches musical harmonies. Finally, after a discussion on astrology in Book 5, Kepler ends Harmonices by describing his third law, which states that for any planet, the cube of the semi-major axis of its elliptical orbit is proportional to the square of its orbital period. In the final book of Harmonices, Kepler explains how the ratio of the maximum and minimum angular speeds of each planet, its speeds, and the perihelion and aphelion is nearly equivalent to a consonant musical interval. Furthermore, the ratios between these extreme speeds of the planets compared against each other create even more mathematical harmonies. These speeds explain the eccentricity of the orbits of the planet in a natural way that appealed to Kepler's religious beliefs in a heavenly creator. While Kepler did believe that the harmony of the worlds was inaudible, he related the motions of the planets to musical concepts in Book 4 of Harmonices. He makes an analogy between comparing the extreme speeds of one planet and the extreme speeds of multiple planets, with the difference between monophonic and polyphonic music. Because planets with larger eccentricities have a greater variation in speed, they produce more notes. Earth's maximum and minimum speeds, for example, are in ratio of roughly 16 to 15, or that of a semitone, whereas Venus's orbit is nearly circular and therefore only produces a singular note. Mercury, which has the largest eccentricity, has the largest interval, a minor tenth or a ratio of 12 to 5. This range, as well as the relative speeds between the planets, led Kepler to conclude that the solar system was composed of two bases: Saturn and Jupiter a tenor, Mars, two altos, Venus and Earth and a soprano, Mercury, which had sung in perfect concord at the beginning of time, and could potentially arrange themselves to do so again. He was certain of the link between musical harmonies and the harmonies of the heavens, and believed that man, the imitator of the Creator, had emulated the polyphony of the heavens so as to enjoy the continuous duration of the time of the world in a fraction of an hour. Kepler was so convinced in a creator that he was convinced of the existence of this harmony despite a number of inaccuracies present in Harmonices. Many of the ratios differed by an error greater than simple measurement errors from the true value for the interval, and the ratio between Mars's and Jupiter's angular velocities does not create a consonant interval, though every other combination of planets does. Kepler brushed aside this problem by making the argument, with the math to support it, that because these elliptical paths had to fit into the regular solids described in Mysterium, the values for both the dimensions of the solids and the angular speeds would have to differ from the ideal values to compensate. This change also had the benefit of helping Kepler retroactively explain why the regular solids encompassing each planet were slightly imperfect. Kepler was convinced that the geometrical things have provided the Creator with the model for decorating the whole world, and wanted to further explore the aspects of the natural world, specifically being involved with astronomical and astrological concepts of music. When Kepler published Harmonices Mundi, Kepler was held liable in a dispute with physician Robert Fludd, who also published his own harmonic theory at the time. To Kepler, the celestial physics of the spheres were seen as geometrically spatial regions that consisted of each planetary orbit rather than its physical form. The connection between music, mathematics, and astronomy had a profound impact on history. It resulted in music's inclusion in the quadrivium, the medieval curriculum that included arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, and along with the trivium, grammar, logic, and rhetoric, made up the 7 liberal arts, which are still the basis for higher education today. A small number of recent compositions either make reference to or are based on the concepts of musica universalis or harmony of the spheres. Among these are Music of the Spheres by Mike Oldfield, Om by the Moody Blues, The Earth Sings Me Fa Me album by The Receiving End of Sirens, Music of the Spheres by Ian Brown, and Björk's single Cosmogony, included in her 2011 album Biophilia. Earlier in the 1910s, Danish composer Ruud Langgaard composed a pioneering orchestral work titled Music of the Spheres. Music of the Spheres was also the title chosen for the musical foundation of the video game Destiny, and was composed by Martin O'Donnell, Michael Salvatore, and Paul McCartney. Paul Hindemith wrote a 1957 opera and a symphony using the same music called Die Harmonie der Welt, based upon the life of the astronomer Johannes Kepler. The next time you find yourself listening to music, observing nature and your surroundings, or just solving a simple mathematical equation, take a moment to reflect on the patterns around you. They have so many exciting things to tell you. Okay, Joy, I know it's time to eat. I get what you're telling me. Okay, so before we're out of here, remember whether the microcosm or the macrocosm, sacred geometry is written into the fabric of life itself. Now that's quick wisdom with bliss, and that wraps up our learning for today's fascinating subject. I hope your spirit has grown as much as mine has. Please come see me anytime to discuss more spiritual ideas and heart-fulfilling concepts. What was that, Joy? You don't want them to leave? Aw, neither do I. Well, they can stay if they want to. Now, let's meditate on our next adventure. Meow.